Hello and welcome to the Cubs on Deck podcast. I am one of your hosts. My name is Greg Huss, and today I am joined by my co-host Brian Smith. Brian, how are we doing, man?
I'm doing good. We're trying to survive this Cubs down spell in the major leagues by finding other places to have hope.
You're saying you're not having a great time watching the Chicago Cubs play baseball games?
It hasn't been great. It has not been great.
Dude, it's been rough at the major league. We were talking about it before we hit record, and it's just Cubs Twitter is a toxic place right now, and more toxic than normal. I feel like.
It is. Yeah, I went to the game Saturday night at Wrigley, and I just, I was like, okay, this is it. We're turning it around. All the momentum's going to switch as a result of me being there and, ready to have fun. And it did not live up to the hope.
Well, we're recording this on Monday night on Memorial Day, and Marcus Stroman just threw a complete game. So, yeah. I mean, maybe we'll look back and say that's the day where everything flipped back around. So, hopefully that's the case. I'm not holding out hope, but as we're recording this on Monday, the Tennessee Smokies are playing right now. So we will not be talking about the 5 one-hit innings that Cole Franklin threw or the home run that Owen Casey hit earlier in the game. I was thinking it was kind of weird that Tennessee is the only team playing tonight, but actually it's weird that the other teams aren't playing. I know that it's a Monday and typically that's an off day, but it's also Memorial Day. You'd think that most of the teams would try to fit in a game today.
Yeah, I love that the Southern League decided to do it, and yeah, it seems like a missed opportunity for the other leagues, but hopefully they clean that up next year.
Yeah, because I remember last year they did. I think it was 4th of July fell on a Monday or a Sunday or something like that, and they still found ways to get the games in on the Monday for 4th of July. But
right,
I don't know. But anyway, so we got a good episode today. We'll try not to go too long. We have plenty of topics here to talk about today. We've seen some Daniel Palencia. We've convert to the bullpen. We've seen some starters move over to the bullpen, quite a few of them. So we'll be talking about them. In addition, there's 3 hitters that I want to talk about today that are performing unbelievably well, like literally unbelievably well so far this year. So we'll talk about Luis Vasquez, BJ Murray, and Ezequiel Pagan later on in the episode. And yeah, we just got a lot of guys to hit on today. So let's dig right into the Daniel Palencia breakdown, because he was put on the development list from Tennessee, sitting down to Arizona. And obviously the move was to convert him to a reliever from a starting pitcher. It happened a little bit quicker than what I expected that to happen. But when he was activated off the developmental list, he was sent to Iowa to work as a reliever, which is super fun. In his 2 outings so far this past week as a reliever, he went 1 inning in both outings. The first outing he gave up 0 hits, 0 runs, a walk and a strikeout, or a walk and 2 strikeouts, sorry. And then in his second outing, he gave up 2 hits, 1 earned run, 0 walks, and 1 strikeout. So I don't know, man. What are your opinions on the shift from Daniel Palencia, the starting pitcher, to Daniel Palencia, the relief pitcher?
Yeah, I guess I'm not totally surprised that it's a move they decided to make, especially, the Major League pen struggling. A move that they've talked about in the past with me is, something they thought he'd be really successful with. I guess the surprise in my mind was going from the dev list straight to Iowa was the part of it that surprised me the most, that they didn't sort of like work him in back where he was comfortable in Tennessee. That they decided to just pose the challenge right then and there. I guess it was, it's probably because of the ball in Tennessee, which, I think we're going to mention every episode at some point. I think they just thought, okay, if this guy is as good as we think he is, then he's probably major league ready before too long. We got to get the data on him with a major league ball. And that's probably, I guess, what informed that call.
Anything that stood out as far as what he looks like now compared to him as a starting pitcher?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you. He doesn't have like a natural stuff jump that came from relief like some guys have. I mean, the reason is because he has just insane stuff like all the time, so it wasn't like he went from 97 to 100 to 100 to 102, which, I think, if you were like closing your eyes and dreaming of Palencia as a closer, that might have been where you were going. And like, for all we know, that is going to happen in time, when he gets more comfortable with this throwing schedule and just gets more reps with his arm. I could see him throwing harder, but we have yet to see, I would say, a real bump and stuff as a result of the move.
Yeah, I think that hope that we would immediately see that was kind of like, I guess I wasn't expecting it. You know what I mean? To jump from, like you said,
Yeah.
97 to 100, all the way up to 100 to 102. It's like you expect to see it more from a guy that's sitting low 90s, bumping up to mid 90s, or
Yep.
mid 90s up to high 90s. But like when you're already high 90s, there's just not a lot of wiggle room. Like there's not a whole lot of like better to get as far as your fastball velo. The stuff is already really, really good. I think it's just a matter of like, the stuff just might play better in the bullpen. It doesn't get better in the bullpen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll edit it back down. You know, he was throwing essentially 5 pitches as a starting pitcher, and I think in his first outing with Iowa, I think he did throw all 5, if I'm remembering right. I think in time the Cubs will probably edit that down to mostly 2, with the 3rd and 4th kind of showing up every once in a while, and that'll be interesting to see which ones they pick, because I don't think he has yet the breaking ball that they want him to have. I think that's probably the long-term project that they're going to keep working on. I really like the changeup. And then that first Iowa outing was a lot more 2-seamers than 4-seamers, which is interesting. Usually a guy throwing 100, you know, you're expecting that to be sort of 4-seamer, top of the zone type pitch. He throws a 2-seamer with a bunch of run, but he still gets some ride on it. I mean, it's 100 miles per hour. So you throw that any part of the zone, it's gonna play. But you know, he has a fun movement profile with that sinker. And I think that'll be the pitch that, you know, he probably ends up throwing, I don't know, 50-60% of the time as a reliever.
Yeah. It's interesting that, I mean, going back to the dev list, then immediately up to Iowa, we saw a similar move without the dev list happen with Luke Little, right? Yep. Where he was converted to the bullpen in South Bend. And then I think he had 1 outing as a reliever in South Bend before going up to Tennessee and as a reliever full time. And I think that the two I know that one's a level above, but I think those two basically simultaneous moves are super interesting to compare those two guys, because they both have really good fastballs. I think that they both have potential to show a really good slider. And they both are just like, you can dream on them a whole lot as a relief pitcher, right?
Yep.
What do you think as far as, so they're both being kind of fast tracked, right? This move to the bullpen kind of fast tracks them to the major league level.
Yeah.
Who do you think that we see in Chicago first between Luke Little and Daniel Palencia?
I think we'll see Palencia first. I think, you know, Little's going to slot in as in that like lefty relief group. And I think the Cubs will want to look at Bailey Horn first, maybe even Brendan Little one more time. He's a minor league free agent at the end of the year. So it might be a situation where, you know, they want to give him one more shot as well. So I think there's just like more players that Little has to climb over before it's sort of his turn, than Palencia, where, you know, I think if Danny were to have, I don't know, 3 to 5 really good outings that are, you know, he's 100 per hour with the fastball and he's shoving against AAA hitters, like I could see that happening pretty quick.
Are we calling him Danny P yet? Is that a thing?
I like it. You know, it's better than just going by the initials for him.
I don't know. I think that you're right as far as the guys that Luke Little would potentially have to jump. I think it's possible we see both guys in Chicago this year. I think that, like always, it's dependent on what the big league team looks like in Chicago by the end of the year, because that could get wild. I don't know. That could get wild in terms of who we see in Chicago. But I think it's interesting. I think we might see both guys up there, and to have Luke Little and Daniel Palencia up there in the big league bullpen is going to be fun as hell. Like that's going to be terrific.
Yeah, I mean, the Little switch to relief was really interesting because he was off to a good start as a starting pitcher.
Yeah,
and that's something I think Jed Hoyer talked about the other day was, you know, that they had sort of made a conscious decision to be quicker this year to move guys to relief. And Little was sort of, or actually, I guess Ryan Jensen was the first one that made the move, but Little was the one where it was like, oh wow, they're even willing to take high A pitchers and convert them to relief. Like, you know, they're taking any guy who is in his Rule 5 year now. I think that's a guy that the Cubs are going to look to to get numbers on as a reliever. And that's not something they always did in the past. I mean, even Ryan Jensen last year, was still starting. So it's interesting to see the philosophical shift, and, makes you wonder how much, if the Cubs bullpen in Chicago was aces this year, if it was just rock solid, would it still be the case? Or is it a result of that a little bit? I'd be interested to know the answer.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Where it's like, is this a result of a bad bullpen in Chicago, or on the other side of things, is this a result of the front office being super confident in their ability to develop starting pitchers, right? So
Sure.
you mentioned Ryan Jensen, and we've talked about Danny P and Luke Little, and Riley Thompson's another guy that they converted to the bullpen. I talked about Riley quite a bit with Alex Cohen on last episode. Those are, I mean, you got Palencia and Jensen and Luke Little especially. I think Riley Thompson was working his way back into that equation, but like some top end prospect starting pitchers, right? These are not guys that are like outside top 30s. All four guys are top 30 type guys. Daniel Palencia and Luke Little are top 15 type guys in the system.
Yeah.
And I think that this, regardless of what we're seeing in the Major League bullpen, I think it really like goes to show how confident they are in that ability to develop starting pitchers that aren't top 30 guys right now, right? I'm just thinking like Walker Powell came in and took the rotation spot of Ryan Jensen in Tennessee. I'm not saying that Walker Powell is the guy that they have the utmost confidence in, but you gotta replace those former or those current top 30 now relievers with some new guys. And I don't know, I get that feeling they feel really confident in that ability, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, a starting rotation in Chicago is going to need, probably 7-8 starters when you go into a year that you feel confident. If they're starting to feel confident about those guys in the 6, 7, 8 role that they have, it makes sense then that we're going to need 15 relievers, and we don't feel confident at all that we're in that ballpark. Let's start switching some guys that we're always going to be a stretch to make it to Chicago as starters, and let's be quicker to show them the path. I mean, I'll tell you right now, like DJ Hers pitching in relief in under 6 weeks would not surprise me. I mean, he fits the profile of these other guys right away. So, I would guess if you had me guess who the next guy was, I think it'll be DJ.
Yeah, I hadn't put much thought into that, to be completely honest with you, but I think that's a safe bet. And not only does it kind of show the confidence they have in lower tiered guys, but I think it also shows the confidence they have in guys like Ben Brown and Cade Horton and Jordan Wicks that do project as like definite starting pitchers, right? Jordan Wicks is about as starting pitchery as they come. He said when we interviewed him on the show in the offseason, he said that he'd be happy to help the big league team in whatever role he is, obviously. But when you're looking for a guy that looks like a starting pitcher, pitches like a starting pitcher, has the repertoire of a starting pitcher, like that's Jordan Wicks is that guy. But Ben Brown is showing himself to be that guy too. So those guys stepping up probably contributed to this as well. It's probably a multitude of reasons why these guys got converted to the bullpen.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Cole Franklin has not been converted, and I don't think he will be. So it's interesting, it'll be interesting to see the guys that they decide to keep going a little longer. I mean, Porter Hodges is going to be a really fascinating one. It's Porter Hodges' Rule 5 year. I think he'd be a great reliever. I mean, he has the breaking ball for relief. If that fastball plays on the upper end of the scale, it's really good. But he's also having a bunch of success the last 4 weeks as a AA starter for the first time. So, it's going to be really interesting to see sort of the thought process they have for which guys go and which guys don't go, and to sort of reverse engineer our guesses on why it is those particular guys.
A couple more comments on this conversion here. One is that like these are true conversions for Palencia and Luke Little and Riley Thompson, and actually all four guys here. They are truly going to like 1 inning outings. I think Jensen has been throwing, I think 2 at a time. But the other 3 guys are like true 1 inning outings. Like this is not like a piggyback situation. This is not a multi-inning reliever like Keegan Thompson. This is true like 1 inning, go out there and get 3 outs, which is not what I expected really.
Yeah, I mean they're definitely committed to it. I don't think it's like a short-term thing. I think they know that it would be irresponsible to ask a guy to switch back and forth a bunch of times. I think Riley ended up making a spot start, but that was like a circumstance in Iowa of like a guy getting called up, being completely out of pitchers, and they still didn't ask him to throw very much. I think in general, like these guys have been told, this is your role for the rest of the year. We think it's going to increase your odds of being a major leaguer sooner. And I think they got buy-in from the guys, which is really the most important piece, is like that you don't get bitterness from the guys. I mean, Luke Little was having success, and I think, was it Todd, I think, heard from Luke that he was like really excited to pitch out of the bullpen. And I thought that was so awesome and really like self-aware of Luke to be like, yeah, I can be really good at this, and I think it'll help me move quicker, and it's working.
I love that. I love that so much. I think from the other point I wanted to make was from our perspective. I don't know how you feel. I don't know if I said this to you or somebody else earlier in the week. It makes it really difficult to put together a prospect list and rank these guys.
Yeah.
I mean, like Luke Little and Daniel Palencia as starting pitchers, that's completely different than Luke Little and Daniel Palencia as relievers. Like because it's for me, it's really tough to rank a reliever above, like, I mean, it depends on the how the system looks overall, but like with this current version of the system, to rank a reliever above like 25 in the system, because like relievers just by default, they bring less value to a major league team because they're throwing less innings. Now I still think Daniel Palencia and Luke Little have incredible stuff. There's a chance they still get converted back to the starting rotation, obviously. But I don't. What's your take on the ranking of those guys? Because I'm having a hell of a time.
Yeah, I mean, when we rank a minor league pitcher, there's always some part of you that's kind of doing the math of like, okay, what reliever? I think the term inside baseball is like reliever risk. And, that probably has more negative connotations than it's really meant. It's more like, what % chance do I think this person ends up a reliever? And that was always baked into our ranking of Palencia and Little, right? They were higher guys in that category than other guys in the system. You read any scouting report on those two guys, and I think like probably everyone mentioned like might convert to relief eventually, will probably be good at that. The thing that's changed is now, like, if it was maybe in my mind for Luke, let's say, I was probably 75% he's going to be a reliever, 25% he's going to be a starter. Now it's probably like 95.5. So does that 20% change, like lower how he is as a prospect? Is that fair? Especially when, what the Cubs are telling us by making that move is like, we think this guy could be a major league reliever soon. That's also like implying a level of confidence and faith. So it's a weird balance. I think that for me, it's probably not going to ultimately change where they rank for me too much, mostly because those two guys like were not a huge surprise. Where I will say, like, somebody like Riley Thompson had a really nice start to the year and was rising up my rankings pretty quickly, because like the Cubs, I could have seen a path where he started in Chicago based on how he was looking those first couple outings. That being gone off the table, probably like the ascent that he was making in April probably did get stalled out a little bit by his move to the pen. So he's one where it affected me more than maybe Little.
Yeah, Riley Thompson on my like notes app that I just kind of keep a running. I think you do the same, where you just keep a running tally of your prospect list as the season wears on. How he's looked on my list has been wild. I mean, because I do position players and then pitchers separate, and then when I go to make a list, I merge them and stuff like that. But yeah, my Riley Thompson was shooting up my list. Like, he was, in terms of pitchers, he was like 15-ish, right around there to begin the year.
Yeah.
And then as a month into the season, he was top 10 guy, and now he's back down a few notches. It's like, that's wild. Daniel Palencia is different to me than Luke Little in the rankings. Because I think I had more quote unquote reliever risk on Luke Little than Daniel Palencia. I think I was kind of along with I think Lance Brozdowski was mentioning before the season that Daniel Palencia and how he had a lot of confidence in him staying as a starter. I was kind of on that side of the spectrum where I didn't see a guy that, in terms of like body wise, I think that a lot of people reference his body. It's like, oh, like he's a smaller guy. It's like Daniel Palencia is not really, I mean, he may be shorter, but Daniel Palencia is not a smaller guy.
Right.
And
Strong
so
legs.
I didn't really account for that at all in terms of like the reliever risk and stuff like that. So I had more confidence in him being a starter. So I was higher on him in terms of my list than most. So I think I've come back down to earth in terms of where I'll rank him ultimately when the midseason comes out. So yeah, that was just kind of wonky. But all right, man, we've probably talked enough about relievers and starters and stuff like that. Let's go. We have the three guys I mentioned that are having outrageous years: Luis Vasquez, Ezekiel Pagan, and BJ Murray. All three guys that are not that coming into the year. I don't know, not top 30 guys in your eyes, right?
No, I think the highest one that I ranked of those was Murray, who was like late 40s.
Yeah. So all guys that have like put themselves on the map pretty hard this year. Let's get into Luis Vasquez first. We're gonna answer the question for each of these guys: are they legit? And I don't know what legit means in this circumstance. We haven't talked about this before. We're just going to answer this hypothetical question. Are they legit? Reading off Luis Vasquez's numbers this year for AA Tennessee, he's batting .281 with a .335 on base percentage, and he's slugging .479, which is out like a lot higher than what he's done in the past, obviously. He's got a strikeout rate of 26% and a walk rate of 7%. His WRC plus is sitting at 122. That was entering tonight. Again, Tennessee's playing tonight, so that might change slightly. I don't know, dude. Luis Vasquez, we have been waiting on this. Like, we've been waiting on this for so long. I tweeted out this past week that all of the Cubs prospect people, whether we've been down in the weeds with Cubs prospects or people that are just kind of like casually following the system, have been very like, man, if Luis Vasquez, if he can just like hit at all, he can sniff the major leagues, because we know the glove is outrageously good, like one of the best defensive players in the system at shortstop. If he can just hit a little bit, he's going to be something. And he's doing more than hitting a little bit. He's got a WRC plus of 122, you know?
Yeah.
Is this a legit breakout? How much has this changed how you view Luis Vasquez?
A pretty good amount. I mean, I think the part of the breakout that is real is, you know, he got stronger. I think he got stronger, honestly, before the 2022 season a lot. And it didn't play as much last year. I mean, I think he did he hit more homers last year than he ever had, but, you know, he's going to blow it out of the water this year. I think the power breakout's real. I will also say, like, I've been watching a ton of Tennessee lately, and like, I know he's one of those guys where we say a bunch like, oh, he's just really good defensively. And like, you know, we just ask people to sort of take us at our word on that one. Like, watch Tennessee for a week, and like, I guarantee you he makes 3 plays where you're like, holy cow, like there's like 11 guys in the majors that like can make that play. It is like legit defense, and the power is real. Do I think he's a 122? Like, is that a real number that translates in any real way? Probably not. Like, still below average bat, but his odds of being a big leaguer have increased dramatically. So yeah, he's moved up for me.
You know what cracks me up is that, like, you know, like every offseason or even during the season, sometimes we always talk about who has the best glove at shortstop in the system. It's just it's a question that always comes up.
Yeah.
And even through the injury, like that past offseason, we said it was Ed Howard. Every once in a while, you throw out Kevin Made, but you always mention Ed Howard, Kevin Made, top defensive shortstop in the system. And I think we said that. I know that when Pipeline always does their best defense in the system, all that good stuff. When you say that, it's because Luis Vasquez wasn't viewed as a prospect, right? Yeah. He was viewed as an organizational type guy. And so even though Luis Vasquez does have the best defense at shortstop, in my opinion, in the system, he wasn't ever mentioned, because it's like, why mention an organization guy? You're going to mention a prospect that is on top 30 lists, is going to potentially play in Chicago. I mean, but he put together like last year in Tennessee, he put up a 72 WRC plus. Yeah. In Iowa, he put up a 20 WRC plus. In 2021, he had a 51 WRC plus. It's like, it wasn't like, oh, he was just bad with the bat. Like, he was really bad with the bat.
Yeah.
And so because we've seen this like drastic shift, if he was going from like just like bad to like below average, I think that I'd believe it more. I'd be like, oh, like, okay, like he figured something out. But it's like going from horrific to going to terrific. Like that's wild to me, dude.
And it's, you know, a lot of guys have great seasons because their BABIP just goes out of control, especially like middle infielders who hit the ball on the ground a ton. Like you see that all the time. That's not what this is. This is a guy who's like added power to his game, and that's what's changing his profile. I mean, he had a home run this week. I wrote about it at Bleacher Nation. Like he backspun a ball to right center field over the fence. You know, there's just not a lot of shortstops that are doing that kind of like oppo power and looking like comfortable doing it. So yeah, it's exciting. He's a minor league free agent at the end of the year. So, you know, I would expect that the Cubs are getting really good work out of Sergio Alcantara in AAA as a depth piece. At some point, I think they might tell him like, hey, like, let's help you find a job with another team because like we need to take a look at this guy who's a minor league free agent for us that, you know, we really need to evaluate at the top level. So that's a decision that'll be really interesting to me come like late June, early July.
Yeah, and you mentioned that bump up to Iowa for Vasquez. I mean, there's a lot of guys in Tennessee that deserve a bump up to Iowa. Chase Strumpf, who we're not going to talk about today, he's probably ready for that bump up, but he plays second base and third base. BJ Murray is getting close. He plays third base. It's super interesting where they're going to find room for some of these guys. Luis Vasquez is among the top of that category. So, all right, let's go to Ezequiel Pagan, who has been the best of the bunch. He's got the smallest sample size, obviously. He got a late start to the season, but since he's been up in South Bend, has been the best hitter in South Bend. Last year when he was in Myrtle Beach, he was the most consistent hitter on the team the entire year last year, and that's a team that had Kevin Alcantara the entire year long. So Ezequiel Pagan's been terrific. This year he's posting this is in 108 plate appearances, so small sample size, but like we're getting to the point where like it's
not that small.
Yeah, exactly. He's got a 371 batting average. His on-base percentage is 426. He's got a slugging of 515, striking out only 16% of the time, and walking 7% of the time. WRC plus 172. Ezequiel Pagan's been my guy. Like I've really liked Ezequiel Pagan quite a bit, dating back to a couple of years ago. For a while there, he was always he kept falling into the category of like, okay, like what's different between Ezequiel Pagan and Darius Hill and what he's doing in the upper levels of the minors. But like, I think that Ezequiel Pagan is a much different type of player. I think there's more athleticism with Ezequiel Pagan. I think that he has some room to fill out and add some muscle. And I think that we're seeing it. He's hitting the ball quite a bit harder too. So that's my quick, I had to throw that in before I kicked it over to you. I dig Ezequiel Pagan. I'm about it. Legit. Yes. Whatever that means.
It's so funny you said that because definitely on my list of things that I was going to say is, you know, what's different with Ezequiel Pagan and Darius Hill? Because I actually see their profiles really similarly. Okay. I mean, they're different players. They get to the results differently, but I think that's the profile that I would project Pagan to get to, as a guy that, and you know, that is definitely not a thing that I'm saying negatively.
Yeah.
Those are two guys, you know, that I respect the hell out of, that like all world bat to ball guys. But yeah, Pagan, I wonder about the profile. I mean, I said earlier, I was talking about guys that have high BABIPs that sort of are inflating their numbers. I mean, his is 430.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's obscenely high. He has a fly ball rate, you know, under 30%. So it's a lot of like hard hit ground balls and low line drives, which is great. Like there's a place for that. He's helping that South Bend team immensely. I mean, he is their best player, head and shoulders. I think he'll walk more. I think he has the pitch recognition to walk more. So I think that's going to be a thing that's really going to help him as he gets older. And yeah, I mean, you kind of highlighted it. Like the question is going to be, can he put on enough muscle while retaining athleticism to like hit for just enough power to make it work? Of the three, I'm the most dubious of Pagan's profile. So that's kind of where I land. Actually,
that's a good way to put it. Of these three, between Murray, Pagan, and Vasquez. Yeah, I don't know, dude. That's tough. That's they all have I'm gonna be careful saying this, but they all have high floors from the perspective of like if you like they're going to make it up and like be somewhat successful in AAA, I think. But you're right, Pagan is the least likely of the three, I think.
And there are three guys that like, probably profile still even during these breakouts as MLB bench players. Like,
yes,
I think we always on this show try to say like we hype these guys, but we also try to be somewhat realistic in our hype. So it's probably important to say like we're not trying to yet sell any of these guys as like future regulars in Chicago. I don't think that's yet where we see any of them. It's more like they're guys that have really good profiles to be helpful major leaguers on a bench. And now I think we're starting to see all three of their odds of getting up to that level have increased this year.
Yeah, you nailed that. You nailed that description. And part of that is because they all have very specific traits that profile as major league ready, or not major league ready. That's not the right term, but like major league level, where Vasquez has the glove. Pagan has the bat to ball skills. BJ Murray has the best eye I've ever not really, but like BJ Murray has an incredible eye. Like the way he like puts together at bats is outrageous. And we'll get to him in a second here, but and you're looking for major league quality tools, and each of them have one of those.
Yep. Guys that like managers will really like because of exactly what you said. Like they do one thing exceedingly well. Plus they like have one other thing that's like, you can see a manager being like, oh, that's really helpful. Like, BJ's a switch hitter. Like Pagan can swipe me a bag. Vasquez, I can use as a late game sub defensively, like, or like if I have to use him as a pinch hitter, he's got enough pop to get one over the fence. Like all the guys are just the kind of guy that like shows up in spring training and the manager is just like, no, I'm not ready to send him down. Like, no, I'm not ready to send him down. And then all of a sudden, like they're in competition for those last two spots.
I mean, moral of the story is that we're spending not quite half an hour here talking about three guys that David Ross will dig. Like that's the moral of the story, right? It's all about David Ross. So we should probably spend some. But I mean, this all jokes aside, like this is why we have this show, right? Is so we can talk about BJ Murray, Ezequiel Pagan, and Luis Vasquez, because there's plenty of talk about the top 10 prospects in the system. Well, you can go read about them, you can go look at tweets about them, all that good stuff. But like we want to talk about like the deeper cuts in the system. These are three guys that fit that category. Let's go ahead and we've mentioned BJ Murray enough here. Let's go ahead and talk specifically about him. BJ Murray has been red hot, dude. Like he cannot get out recently over the past month or so. He'll be the May hitter of the year, or May hitter of the year. That doesn't make sense. He'll be the May hitter of the month in the Cubs system because he's put together a great month. This year, though, over the course of the year, he is batting .260 with a .398 OBP. And he's slugging .513. His strikeout rate is 23.7%, and his walk rate is just shy of 18%, which is what I was talking about, drawing all those walks. WRC plus 152. Yeah, dude, this is putting himself on the map, but I think it's just a kind of a continuation of what we've seen, what we saw from him last year. He was really, really good last year, but now we're seeing it at a higher level. And we're seeing it just kind of enhanced just a little bit, enough to like really like get on people's radars. He's been kind of taking over Twitter, which is fun. We're gonna get into some underrated guys here in a minute, but I wouldn't really consider BJ Murray underrated at this point. He's got plenty of publicity on social media about him. He's been really good, dude.
Yeah, I mean he's like full stop for me. He's the best of these three players. Probably top 25 prospect now. I think definitely top 30. And playing a really good third base. Mick Gillespie's been talking about that on the broadcast, is like his comfort since they just sort of stopped. He played second 2 games this year. He played first base a few times early in the year. These last couple of weeks, they've just been like, no, you're playing third base every day. We like you there. And Mick has been talking about how he's just been more and more comfortable. I think Jordan Wick's last outing, it felt like every ball went to BJ. It was just one of those games where like he must have been like, can I get a break? Like, can you hit it to the outfield one time or something? But he did a great job. And so like that's really meaningful, because now he sort of just has a home where you can project him from. And it just becomes a question like, okay, is he going to have enough pop to play third base and to be at the third baseman you want in the lineup? And I kind of think we're seeing that too. I mean, he hit a double tonight that he got his arms extended. And, when he's getting his arms extended, he's put on enough muscle that like it's sufficient pop. Like it's probably more like 15 to 20 home run pop in the majors. If he got to his, I don't know, 90th percentile outcome or something. But I think he can absolutely get to those numbers. He's plenty strong enough. He still has some room to go, I would say, in getting that body. I think he can get it even stronger. And like switch hitter with a great eye, like that's going to earn you a lot of extra points too. So yeah, I'm in.
I've got a comp incoming. But I want to comp the
Chipper Jones.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, BJ Murray. BJ Murray is Chipper Jones. No, my comp is more of a situation that we've already seen in the Cubs system, not the player one for one. But what Nelson Maldonado did last year, when he went from AA, when he was killing it for a short period of time, up to AAA Iowa, we were very concerned about like the hit tool, because the hit tool is super, super important. And he flashed power in the same way that BJ Murray's flashing power. Now, the difference between these two players is that I'm a little more confident in BJ Murray's defense, funny enough, than Maldonado's. And their carrying tool is Maldonado was a hit tool, and BJ Murray is the eye drawing walks. But besides that, like their situation reminds me a lot of each other, where I want to see BJ Murray go up to AAA Iowa, and I want to make sure that like elite skill where he draws walks and works at bats carries over to the highest level of the minor leagues, because that's going to be the most important thing. If it doesn't, if it's just like average, if he's just generating walks at a 10% clip, at 11% clip, a 12% clip, that's probably not going to be enough to make it up to Chicago one day. Now BJ is a little bit younger than what we saw Nelson Maldonado do it last year. I don't have their ages pulled up in front of me, but I think he's a little bit younger.
Yeah.
But the situation reminds me a lot of what we saw last year.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a situation I think you could see like the power being a lot less in AAA as well, which is sort of what happened to Maldonado a little bit. He does, I would say, have sort of a larger frame, broader shoulders than Maldonado does. So I believe in the power a little more. But yeah, I think he's the type that is going to have to prove it at every level. So it's not like you're having success in this tough AA league. Like now you're on the map. Here's a 40-man spot. Like we're projecting you into the bigs. Like I think he is going to have to earn it the entire way. So that's going to mean AAA next year, and really having to hit to prove that he belongs, and probably also add like another 1 to 2 positions to the mix just to like really ramp up that bench profile a little bit too.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, how cool is it to see what BJ and what like Owen Casey are doing at the plate in the aforementioned AA with the ball, with the pitcher friendly baseballs? Like that's fun, dude. Like Owen Casey's leading the Southern League in home runs. BJ Murray hasn't really missed a beat in terms of the bat, obviously. That's exciting, dude. I love that.
That team's so good. I mean, Aliendo could be in this conversation as well. Vasquez, I mean, man, if there's a team that like just the casual sort of, I'm into the farm system, but more just like reading about it, and now I want to start watching something a little bit, like turn on a Tennessee game. That's the most interesting thing happening in the system. And, they're playing just fantastic baseball. I mean, first place team, like getting close to being the first half champs and having a playoff spot. So yeah, it's really fun game watching out of there lately.
And some fun characters to go along with the good players. PCA's always got the fire. Owen Casey. I mean, low key, Owen Casey has some fire in him, and it's like fun. It's fun to watch him.
Yep. Yeah.
All right,
I mean, they've had some walk-offs lately that have the great celebrations too. It's fun stuff.
Yeah. All right, let's get into this last portion here. We'll probably spend a little bit of time here. I on the Northside Bound Twitter account this past week, I tweeted out asking fans who they believe the most underrated prospect in the system is. And you guys responded, and there were plenty of responses there. I love to see them. Plenty of different names, which is also really fun. Like the fact that there are that many names thrown out is awesome. The most common two names that were thrown out, for what it's worth, like I didn't really have a definition on what legit was in this last segment. I also didn't say like what underrated meant. You know, whether it was like national publications or within Cubs Twitter or like what it meant exactly. So that made it even more interesting. The most common responses I got to that tweet were BJ Murray, who we just talked about, and Moises Ballesteros, who we've talked about plenty on this podcast. And I just thought that was super interesting. So do you want to address those guys first and then get into, I mean, I know we just addressed BJ Murray, but how you feel about them being tabbed as underrated, and then we can get into some of our guys.
Yeah, Ballesteros is the most interesting one to me because I think when the midseason rankings come out, he's going to be a lot closer. He's probably going to be in some people's top 10s. He's going to be probably just outside of mine. And so if you're saying that he's underrated, you're saying that you think he should be higher than that. I would disagree with that. I don't quite see the case for him as like a 5th or 6th prospect in the system. So it's not really one that I necessarily agree with. But I think if you're like reading preseason rankings and you're like, oh, this guy's like 30, what were people thinking? Like, sure, yeah, we'll wear it. He's doing some incredible stuff with the bat in low A, just like, I mean, swinging at like the right pitch every time. And I mean, not swinging at the wrong pitch every time too. Like it goes both ways. And it's that part of his game has been really cool to watch. He's a really good prospect. I don't mean to denigrate that, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think if you see Moises Ballesteros ranked 12th in the system and you say he's underrated there, you and I are going to agree to disagree.
I think it cracks me up, right? Cubs prospect followers are the absolute best. Like the people that listen to this episode, this podcast, the best. Because those two responses being the most common were like, it cracked me up, right? Like I mentioned, BJ Murray has been like all over Cubs Twitter for the past month, like over the past month. That's all people are talking about. And then Moises Ballesteros, I think that along with Hayden McGeary, I think those two guys are, I would consider the most like beloved. I don't, like guys in the entire system. Like people love Mo Baller. They love Hayden McGeary. And so for for Murray and Ballesteros to be named, it just cracks me up. Like I don't think it's definitely not bad. If you're calling those, if you love those players, awesome. Like that's terrific. And you're right. I think compared to like if you're looking at MLB Pipeline's top 30, BJ Murray clearly is not on there. I don't think
Murray just got on. He's 30.
You're right. And I don't think Ballesteros is on there, is he?
Oh, really?
I could be wrong. I could be wrong on that. I shouldn't even said that.
Oh, I will say Kylie McDaniel at ESPN just hyped up Moises quite a bit. I think he saw him play and he slapped an FV on him. I can't remember. I think
it was 55 or something, right?
I think it's 50. 50. Which like that's more optimistic than I am. So I love it. So if ESPN is throwing big tags on him, like I'm sorry, my people. The days of underrated Moises Ballesteros are no more.
We need to find a new guy to hype up, which I'm all for. Let's find a new guy. Like fans to like tweet, like leave a response down here in the YouTube comments. Send us tweets, all that good stuff. Like tell us who like the next guy, like who is the next guy that we need to identify and hype up to no end. It should be, because I'd love to hear it. I want to dig into this. I have two guys, and I tweeted this out. I have two guys that come to mind for two different reasons. One is Jordan Wicks, and one is Chase Strumpf. And it's funny that I went with those two guys because those are two guys that we talk about a lot on the show. Yeah. I think that like they've been around for Chase Strumpf especially has been around for a hot minute. And I'm careful about like these are not. I don't think that so. Let me dig into Jordan Wicks first, and I'll get into Chase Strumpf, right? So I said Jordan Wicks because I think that for national publications, I don't think that he's getting enough love. I don't know that I think he might have just made like one. I think he made Just Baseball's top 100, right? But I think he's made very few top 100s. Obviously, we have him ranked as a top 5. You have him as a top 5, top 6 player in the system?
5, I think. Yeah,
5. I have him as my number 1 pitching prospect in the system right now, still holding on for dear life, but it also changes on the daily with the top 3 guys, top 4 guys, really. But I just don't think he's getting enough national love in terms of top 100 lists. I've said before plenty that I think Jordan Wicks is a guy that is potentially a mainstay in the Chicago rotation. I think he has top 3 or number 3 rotation qualities. I think that he can be really, really good for a long time in Chicago. He just feels like a guy that just always just misses out on top 100s, right? He's always like in the 100 to 120 range of lists that comes up and makes a pretty big impact. You could say the same thing about Ben Brown, really, in terms of like just missing 100s, and then it comes up and he doesn't leave Chicago and he's really, really good. Yeah. So that's my kind of outlook on Jordan Wicks. Chase Strumpf, I just think that like he's been around so long. He's been in Tennessee for the 2nd straight year. I think we're not valuing like his just production at the plate. I've said this so many times where it's like, yeah, he strikes out a lot, although his strikeout rate over the past several weeks has been way down. But like, yeah, he strikes out a lot. Yeah, he's got a low batting average, but it's like, dude, he still produces. Like, he still produces good offensive output. Like, his WRC plus, if you look over the past few years, has still been really, really good. I just think that like this is less of a national thing. I don't think Chase Strumpf is a top 100 guy or even close. But I think that he doesn't get talked about enough as a guy that could make an impact in Chicago, as a bench bat, as a guy that fills in Chicago. I think that like there's value there, no matter how you want to spin it, when you're that productive at the plate.
Your dedication to the Greg Huss bit by going into this segment with Jordan Wicks and Chase Strumpf as your 2 players is just like, I mean, that is just classic. Just like, I'm just going back to the well.
I mean, if you would have predicted if you would have predicted 2 guys that I would have said, you probably would have said those 2 guys, right?
Oh, 100%. So I'm gonna be dedicated to my bit, right? So my bit is gonna just be picking obscure ass players that people are like, who are you talking about? Because I'm like taking the term underrated way too seriously, and I'm gonna be like, all right, nobody talks about this guy. So that's where I'm going with this. So I am going with 2 pitchers.
Wait! Don't say. Can I predict who they are?
Sure.
All right. 2 pitchers that we've never heard of, or we don't hardly ever hear of. Are they in affiliated ball? Are they in full season ball? I mean,
yes.
They are in full season ball.
Yes.
All right. 2 pitchers. Are they starting pitchers or relief pitchers right now?
Starting pitchers.
Oh. All right. I think that I don't think you're going to go with Richard Gallardo, right?
Nope.
All right. Connor Noland is one of them.
Yeah, that's a great guess, and actually belongs in this conversation, but not one of my 2 guys.
All right, my second guess is Nick Hull.
No, but
crap. Okay,
teammate. So I'm going 2 guys from that Myrtle Beach Pelicans rotation. I'm going Brody McCullough, who actually by the time I think people listen to this, like I'm not reporting this, I'm just like common sense is Brody's going to be in South Bend next week. Like I'm just telling you right now. The week he had in low A last week, I think was the exclamation point on his season. And like, I'm not saying he's a better prospect by any means, but Brody has been better this year than Cade Horton. Brody, I think,
which means he's better than Cade Horton, right?
Right, exactly. Brody just, I think, I don't know if this were a more shallow system, if this was back in like 2018, 2017, like this start would be getting talked about all the time because he's been an absolute stud as a 10th round pick out of a small school, just shoving in low A. So that guy gets like 3 good starts in high A and the hype train's coming. So, I'm claiming underrated there. And then my other guy is Michael Arias, who is just like, it's just, like that's a Brian Smith pick all the way. Just my favorite guy to watch this year in the system. Just his numbers are not that great. I think he has an ERA, I want to say, in the mid 4s. But that's like 1 start that was really bad, pretty much inflating everything. And he's had like 2 or 3 starts where it's been loud stuff, and a guy that added a pitch this offseason that looks really solid. And like, you know, he threw 100 miles per hour in the offseason, like posted a video of it. So like legit stuff as well. So those are my two picks, two guys that I think could be top 30 prospects by the end of the year. Certainly have the arms to do it, and just guys that we haven't talked about at all.
I like the Arias pick. Brody McCullough, you picking him is perfect. I mean, I think that outside of us on this podcast, and I think Tommy Myers tweets quite a bit about Brody McCullough for some reason, which cracks me up. I think besides that grouping of individuals, I don't think Brody McCullough has been mentioned hardly at all.
Yeah.
And I think he's good. I just, while you were chatting about him, I was pulling up my like current list of prospects. I've got him as like a pushing towards a top 10 arm in the system right now. Brody McCullough. I think I have him at 12, right behind Brandon Birdsell. And so and that could change. Obviously, we'll see he was at Myrtle Beach, where he was old for the level. He was a college guy, but I don't know, dude. I'm excited to see him in South Bend. I'm excited to see what he can do. He's fun. He's quirky. He has good stuff. Like, he has really good stuff. They're really good. They're especially the first few outings, and then we saw it. I guess we saw it this week too. He can put the ball wherever the hell he wants to. Like, he can dot his fastball on the edges. Versus like what we saw, you mentioned quite a bit about Cade Horton because the stuff is so damn good that he was like living in the middle of the zone with the fastball quite a bit. Yeah. We didn't really see that a whole lot with McCullough, where he was like dotting the edge of the zone with the fastball. The slider always was down and out of the zone. I like McCullough a lot. Arias is a Brian Smith pick, big time. Like, McCullough is too, but like Arias is like big time.
Yeah,
I've seen some jokes floating around that Michael Arias might be like a top like oh, you got him in your top 20 yet? And it's like as a joke because like his stuff is good, but like he's good, dude. Like, he is good. Like, not top 20. Like, no, let's not get carried away. But like, he's good.
Yeah, I mean, he's like, you know, to bring it back to the beginning of our conversation, like probably a guy that down the line, it'll be his Rule 5 year. The Cubs will convert him to relief. We'll probably talk about it on this show, and we'll, you know, oh, isn't it exciting that Michael Arias got converted to relief and moved right to AAA? And like, you know, that everything that happened with Daniel Palencia, like, we're checking those boxes with Arias right now. So that's exciting stuff.
Yeah. All right, man. I think that's all we got this episode. Is there anything else you wanted to mention before we wrap this puppy up?
No, not really. Although, can I just say, Owen Casey, number 2 prospect in the system, conversations should like be happening. If we want to have like big conversations, and you and I can do that in future episodes, like, I want to just put that on people's radars. Like, Owen Casey, number 2 prospect in the system, top 50 prospect in baseball, are conversations that are like, they need to start happening like soon. And like, him not being in top 100s is going to be absolutely ridiculous stuff.
Yeah, I think it's pretty quickly gone from a hipster pick to like actually consider it now. You know what I mean? Like, it's the competition is obviously Kevin Alcantara, and then the trio of arms, Horton, Wicks, and I think that you're probably not going to see Wicks as the number two. As much as I love Jordan Wicks, because there's less upside there. I think it's between Owen Casey, Kevin Alcantara, Cade Horton, and Ben Brown. And I think Owen Casey absolutely deserves to be in that conversation. So
he's 20
years old, dude. And he's hitting the ball. He hits the ball so hard, like so hard. The strikeouts are going to be a problem, obviously, but the strikeouts have come down. Like, they're not where they were at like early on in the year. They're still too high, but like at some point, different than Chase Trump, obviously very different. But it's like, production is production. I don't care. I couldn't care less how much you strike out if you're hitting the ball that hard and you're like that productive at the plate overall, you know?
And like playing a much more fluid outfield than ever. Like, I mean, that's gotten better each of his 3 years in the Cubs system. We
said that was coming. Yeah, I mean, like he was a guy that played in Canada, and he practiced getting fly balls in a warehouse and inside. You know what I mean? Like, it's different. It's different. Like, learning to play the outfield outside. We talked about that quite a bit. I feel like there were a lot of shouts for Owen Casey to first base.
I think I was guilty of that.
But it's like, I don't know, just guys that young, you don't want to see that, especially with his lack of experience in the outfield. And like, now he plays. he's not only is he making some like really good play, like really like running catches and diving plays and stuff like that we saw on occasion at the lower levels, but like he's making the routine plays look good too. Where like he's playing it off the wall, right? He's not diving after a ball down the line. Like he's doing the things that an outfielder is supposed to do, not just like the spectacular things too. You know, that's honestly huge.
Yes, some interesting stuff happening in Tennessee too with the outfield alignments. Have you noticed this the last couple of days? Pete Crow Armstrong getting some right field. Owen Casey moved over to left a few times. Like they're getting some looks at guys in spots, which is just like something that I have my eye on. It's just like an interesting thing.
Yeah, I missed the first time. I don't know where PCA played today on Monday, but I missed. He played right field on Saturday. And then he played right field on Sunday, I believe, were the 2 days that he played right field.
Yeah.
But I missed it on Saturday. I didn't realize that he was in center or he was in right field on Saturday. So I saw the Sunday game, saw him in right field. He made a great play, obviously, in right field. That's just like he always does. But Zach Davis was playing center field on Sunday. And my thought process on that was that Zach just hadn't gotten a whole lot of starts at all this year, very little playing time. And Zach Davis is a damn good center fielder, too, like fast as hell. A really good defensive center fielder. Not saying that he's a better, like I'm not putting him in the conversation of like, oh, he's better than PCA, but it's just like get him some playing time, play him in center field. Might as well get some run for PCA and right. But I don't know. Do you know who was playing center field on Saturday? I missed that.
It's our guy Cole Roeder.
It was Cole.
Yeah, it was Cole, and like that's another example of like a guy who plays a really good center field who like because he's assigned to the same level this year isn't going to get that many reps. So a nice job by Michael Ryan, I think, just like being like, all right, we gotta make sure that our other center fielders just stay comfortable in that spot. So Pete, no, they're not like looking at Pete for other positions. Like nobody worry about that. They're just trying to get guys run and like, just keeping Pete in the lineup and, he's going to be helpful, whatever position he plays in. And honestly, like it's good to see the ball off the bat in those other spots. Like there's going to be times in the majors where he's going to be really shaded over to right field against a left-handed hitter. And like, you never know, like it could be just the way a ball comes off the bat reminds him of something he did when he was playing right field in the minors. And his jump is like a 1/10 of a second faster as a result. Like that stuff does matter. And I'm glad they're like, I'm glad they're exposing him to it, not just sort of deferring to him as a top prospect.
The better narrative is PCA to first base. That's better.
We'll start it now.
All right, man. Anything you want to plug? Anything you're working on over at Bleacher Nation?
No, I might throw up a little re-ranking this week. I'm sort of haven't decided if I want to like sort of put it out there or not, but I've been writing about this Tennessee team a bunch and a lot of the guys we talked about today. So, as these interesting stories keep coming, I'll be throwing up my thoughts up at Bleacher Nation for sure.
You do any, how far have you dug into draft stuff? We're getting closer and closer.
Really, I'm just doing Zumek stuff. He's just done some incredible stuff lately. Northside Bound today, mock draft that was like just so well thought out. I read the Prospect Live guys as well, some Baseball America stuff, but I have not watched a ton of video. I'm gonna get into this college baseball tournament though. With the Cubs a little less interesting the last couple of weeks, I'm ready to dive into the tournament. And hell, Cade Horton just started being interesting to the Cubs at this time last year. So you can start watching college baseball now, and it legitimately there might be one player popping off that moves up draft boards a ton in the next month.
Yeah, dude, I say it every single year this exact time on the podcast. Go watch college baseball in the playoffs. Go watch the College World Series and the regionals and all that good stuff. Because it is incredibly fun baseball. Even if you didn't watch a single inning of the regular season, that's fine. You don't need to know the players. Just go watch some of this regional and College World Series action because it is incredibly fun. Watch as much of that as you can. Like you said, go check out Zumek's mock draft over at Northside Bound. That was an incredibly good read, especially for someone like me who is not super familiar with the players yet. I still have to dig in a little bit deeper. But whether you're a nerd about it or you have not heard a single name in this draft class, go check it out because you'll learn something there, regardless of how you feel or where you're at. That's worth your while. As far as written stuff for me, I don't I don't know that there's anything on the immediate horizon as far as written stuff. So I'll keep putting up these podcasts to carry my weight here. But thank you guys so much for listening. You can find us on the Northside Bound YouTube page. We've got this brand new setup on StreamYard here, so you can see all of our social media channels down here below. So I don't have to run through them all the time. Leave us a comment, leave us a rating and a review. Tell your friends about it, all that good stuff. We can't thank you guys enough for listening, and we'll be back in your ears in one short week.
Go Cubs, go Hawks.